welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January of 2023, you will know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Because we all know that it's very difficult to become vulnerable and tell people about things that we are dealing with the fear of being judged. Therefore, I started the conversation off talking about my journey through thyroid cancer. And in this, it has truly been a blessing because there are several people that have come on this season to talk about their various testimonies, their triumphs, their trials. And it's helping other people to grow. It's helping them to get through whatever it is that they're dealing with. Could you have a story that you want to share that can help to heal others? That can help move others along as they journey through the same path that you've already cleared? If so, please send me an email to operations@diversitydesigned.com and just say, I want to be on Embracing the Fight. Or you can reach out to me on Facebook at Embracing the Fight. You can send me a DM or you can just send me a message on my page, whatever works for you. I would love to hear your story. Now that we've got all that out of the way, have you subscribed to the channel? Have you clicked like? Have you shared? Have you commented on the post? If not, please do. That helps the channel to grow. That helps the message to get out. Now, beyond that, I want to show y'all something. Yeah, it looks like a little minor thing. You know, people, oh, you got carpal tunnel. I don't have carpal tunnel. No, I was playing tennis and I felt something strange in my wrist, and I went to see an orthopedic doctor today, and he basically said you have to wear this until it feels better. So he didn't give me a specific time limit, but I was sitting here going, oh, it's got to happen soon because I'm supposed to be playing in a charity tennis tournament in Houston Memorial Day weekend, but that's not it. I also have some serious knee pain that I'm going to see an orthopedic doctor, on tomorrow concerning that. So send the prayers up, take some time to think about me, get my little knees healed. I know it's pretty selfish to want to have your knees healed to play tennis, but I need them for other stuff. I need them to walk. I need them to be able to climb up and down the stairs of my house, that sort of thing. So, if you think about your friend, just take a little moment and say a little prayer for me, okay? All right. So with that being said, let's jump on into episode 68. Episode 68 with Danette Barker. Y'all, this episode is faith-filled and absolutely, I mean, when I say absolutely amazing, I know I say it every episode, but this is absolutely amazing. If you didn't believe in God, you will after this episode ends. Take a listen. Hello, everyone. You see that I have a very beautiful guest on Embracing the Fight today, and I'm going to allow her this moment to introduce herself first, to tell how we met, and then for her to tell us what the name of episode 68 is and why she named it that way. So let's start with this. Who are you?
My name is Danette Collins-Barker.
Okay.
I am a mom. I am a worship leader. I am an author. I wear a whole lot of hats. More than anything, I am a child of God. And I am very excited to be with you.
I'm so glad to have you here. So let everybody on Embracing the Fight know, how did we actually meet?
Well, it's funny. We were a part of the awesome Mount Hebron Baptist Choir alto section because this is a singing sister and me too.
Okay.
So yes, we met at church.
And Danette and I were actually having a conversation when we were going over this episode about something that I remembered. And I was telling her how we were at choir rehearsal one, I don't know if it was a Saturday, but it was during the week. And Nate say, okay, I need the alto section to sing this part again. Danette, you be quiet. Because when I say baby, Danette was carrying the whole section. I mean, you can hear her from the front to the back of the church. I mean, it was crystal clear. It was, on key, all that. He was like, you stop, everybody else sing. And then he was kind of like, okay, Okay. He could tell, when we weren't getting it together, but shoot, baby, she kept us together. You hear me? And we were part of the Faith Builders too. And that was a young group
Yes,
of people
yes.
who loved Christ, who had a heart after Christ, that would meet for Sunday school, and we talk about the things that we were going through, at that time. And she was very instrumental in leading some of those Sunday school classes. Her and Greg and Julie and Taniqua, all of them. It was just an amazing time down there in Mobile.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
So this is
Those are some
episode.
of my best memories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hated when I had to move. But such is life.
I know we all went different ways, but the awesome thing is, I think that all of us still stay close in our faith. Our hearts stay tied to God, and some of us went on to other ministries. Some of us started our own ministries, but it just goes to show that all the things and all the encounters we had with Christ in that Sunday school class, and then those choir sessions, that they were real,
Yeah.
and they really grew us in the faith and really equipped us for the next phases of our lives. And all of our lives have taken us in different directions, but it's just a blessing to know that that's the one thing that was constant. Christ has been our one constant, and that has kept all of us united together and kept us in the faith.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But this is episode 68. What did you want to name episode 68?
Heartbeat.
All right. And why did you want to name it Heartbeat?
Well, I'm here to talk about an experience I had with my heart. And whenever we would sing this worship song, and in the worship song, one of the lyrics was, "More than my next heartbeat, more than anything, and Lord, as time goes by." And I always remembered that. And so I would always tell people, like, God is my very heartbeat. And so seeing the things that have transpired with my heart, and knowing that literally God was actually the only reason my heart was beating, which you will soon find out after I share this testimony. That is why I wanted to name this episode Heartbeat.
Okay. And now that you alluded to it, when did you notice that you were having something going on with your heart?
Now, there are some parts of the story I actually didn't share with you, but it goes to show how the word of God says that God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And sometimes he works things together for your good that you never thought any good could come out of. And one day I had gone to a Dollar General that was about to close. They were doing a store closing. And I went in, and I got off of work early, and I went in to shop. And the gentleman that was at the door was like, "Well, we're full in here. You can't come in." And I was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "The store is open. You can't tell customers that they can't come in."
Right.
And I think what it was is he was just kind of overwhelmed because it was really crowded. So he just decided he was just going to close the store early. And I was like, "Well, you really can't do that." And I was actually really nice about it. And so when I tried to walk in, he took his hand and he like pushed me really hard in his chest, in my chest, almost to the point where it was almost like a light punch. And so my chest was hurting in that spot. And so I assumed that it was just a little sore. I was like, because it was kind of aggressive the way he pushed me, which I did, contact the manager and all that good stuff. But later that day, I kept telling my mom, I was like, and I still feel a little discomfort. So what actually happened is, when he did that, I don't want to say it bruised my chest, but it made me more aware of the feelings that I was having in my chest area. So it's so funny how God used that and worked that together for my good, because I was so upset about the whole thing. And I remember it was right before we started SATs. I am a fourth grade teacher. I've been a teacher for many years. And it was right before we started SATs. I was at home. It was a lot going on. And earlier that day, we had a pep rally to get the kids ready for SATs. And so when we were getting the kids ready for SATs, I was jumping and dancing, and they was like, "Boy, look at her go." So later that day, I was home. It had to be probably about 11 o'clock, and I was exhausted. fell asleep on the sofa. And I remember waking up and thinking, oh, my chest hurts a little bit, and I thought it was just sore, still
Mhm.
sore from that spot.
Right.
And so I dismissed it, I really did, because I don't have any health problems, or didn't have any health problems that I knew of. And so I just, well, I was like, I'm so sleepy. I'm just going to bed. I'm not gonna be bothered. And the Spirit of God spoke to me and said, go look in your backpack and take those aspirin. And I was like, those aspirin are so old. Like, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I take them on, I was like, but they say medicine will last past its expiration date. So I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna just be obedient. I was like, because just kind of as a precautionary measure, because I was like, what can harm can weak aspirin do anyway?
Right.
Never knowing that it was just God's precautionary measure. But anyway, I took the aspirin and got ready to go to bed.
Hmm.
I went and I got in the bed, and it's like I could not sleep. I kept sitting up. My chest actually was not hurting. And I kept sitting up and I was like, okay, God, what is it? Like, I can tell when the Holy Spirit is trying to speak to me.
Hmm.
And it wasn't, I was so sleepy that I just kind of, how we get sometimes when we're praying and we're like, you know, and I just was like, just let me sleep. Can't you tell me in the morning? So anyway, I sat up in the bed and I was like, okay, God. I was like, Lord, I'm listening. What are you trying to tell me? And
Hmm.
I was like, is something wrong? I was like, because my chest isn't hurting anymore. And I was like, and I'll just, and so I had already decided and rationalized in my mind what I was going to do. I said, well, okay, just to be safe, after I get off from work tomorrow, I will go to the urgent care and just let them run a check just to make sure that, he didn't bruise anything or he didn't do anything, that damaged my chest muscle or my heart, or there's no problem there.
Hmm.
But it's like I still couldn't sleep. I was like, okay, that is not it, is it, Lord? So I got online and I was looking up, okay, chest problems, So I started looking up and I was like, I said, well, it's probably just gas, So I'm reading online and I found an article that literally said how to tell whether or not it's a heart problem or gas. So I read the article sitting there in the bed
Hmm.
and I was like, well, I said, kind of sounds like my symptoms, but the rest of those I don't have. And I was like, I just don't think it's anything. So I was like, okay, God, you're gonna have to show me, because I was like, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning by this time.
My.
So I called an urgent care and I was like, I'll just go to urgent care tonight. I was like, just to be safe. Because I was like, I don't know why, but it's just, I know something's wrong because I know what your spirit feels like. And I know you just keep pushing. But at
Hmm.
the time, I think I was so sleepy that I just really wasn't discerning the spirit all the way and listening prophetically with what he was speaking to me. Because I really wanted him to just say, and go to bed, to be honest. And so when I called the urgent care, the lady was like, well, just go to the emergency room. And then I had to laugh because I was like, okay, well, that's kind of what he's been kind of speaking to my heart. It's just not what I wanted to do. And I was like, the stranger has told me this, it can hear, maybe God. I was like, okay, Lord. So I called my mom and I'm like, my daughters, they're in their bedroom sleep. I was like, they got SATs tomorrow. They need their rest. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to leave them here and go to urgent care. She's like, well, I'm on my way and just wait. And your aunt's going to drop you off at the ER. And so we'll just do that. And I was like, okay, and by the time I hung up with her, just as clear, I sat up in the bed and it's the presence of God still was on me. It would not leave.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, God, something's still wrong. I was like, okay. I said, speak to me. And then I stilled myself. I had to still my spirit. And I don't know if some of you know what I mean by that, but I mean, I had to stop everything my mind was telling me, all of my emotions. And I had to pray for real
Yep.
and say, okay. And I heard the Spirit of God just as clearly say, go. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to ask again because I know I heard that. So I got up and I started getting dressed. And as I started getting dressed, I started feeling winded. And I was like, yeah, God, something's wrong. I was like, because I'm never winded. Like anybody that knows me, like I go a 90, go 100. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, I'm never winded. And after I got dressed, I was getting ready to go sit down and wait for my mom to come because I still was kind of uncomfortable. And God said, get your keys and go get in your car. And I thought, well, my kids are sleeping. He's like, your mom's right around the corner. They'll be fine in that millisecond. Get your keys and get in the car. And I was like, oh Lord, because in my mind I'm thinking she's gonna be mad at me. So I went ahead and I was obedient to the Spirit of God. And God spoke to my heart, put your phone on speaker and keep her on the line so that'll keep her calm so that she knows that you're okay. And then the first thing that went through my mind, I'm sitting here having like verbal, audible conversations with God as I'm walking and doing what he's saying. And I'm like, but it said in the article not to drive if you think you're having a heart attack. If that's what's going on, I don't. And I'm like, okay, God, okay. So I get in the car.
I'm gone.
We're having a whole conversation. I'm having a whole crazy moment. But anyway, I'm sitting here and then with the speaker on, and I call my mom, and of course she's fussing. You did what? I told you to wait. And I'm like, well, God said I couldn't wait. And then she got quiet. And then she waited and she could sense, okay. Because she knows that for me to say that, like if I said I really heard the voice of God say go, she didn't want to argue with that. And so what I ended up doing was I drove to the emergency room and I parked the car and I got up and I, got in to the emergency room and I go to the desk and the lady's like, well, what are you here for? She's looking at me like, there doesn't look like there's anything wrong with you. And I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And she looked at me like, what? Like, you think you're having a heart attack, And she was like, okay. So I guess at that point, she probably hears stuff all the time. Yeah. And she's like, okay, well, just go sit down. We'll call you in a minute. And so, I called my mom and I said, I'm fine. I'll arrive safely. I'm just waiting for them to call me back. And so they called me back. And the lady is taking my vitals, and she's taking my blood pressure. And my blood pressure, oddly enough, wasn't even really what you would call high. It was maybe slightly elevated, which would be somewhat normal if you thought that you were having chest pains, And so she looked at me and she said, well, why do you think you're having a heart attack? And I really didn't want to tell her, like, I don't know. And then I had to just tell her the truth. I was like, well, no, I just felt like God was leading me to come here. And then she stared at me. And I don't know if she was a believer or not, but I think she kind of at that point was like, I'm not going to mess with it. She was like, I'd rather just send you back there and let them run some tests and put you on the heart machine. Cause she's like, she said, I don't see anything based off of the vitals we just got from you and your blood pressure. I don't see anything that would signify that there's anything really wrong. But she was like, but let them just check you out. So I go to the back. They hooked me up to the heart machine and they're asking me questions. And somehow we got to talking about stuff. And me, I can talk like that. So I don't even know what we were talking about, but we were laughing about something. I had her laughing. And then all of a sudden she stops laughing and she starts looking at the monitor with this puzzled look on her face. And then she kind of leans over and is looking at me from around the monitor. And then she looked back at the monitor. And then she did it again. And then I saw her maneuver some other little stuff. And then she did it again. And then her eyes kind of bugged. And then she snatched the paper off and she ran out of the room. And I thought, well, that can't be good,
At all.
At that point, I'm like, okay, well, something's off, but she didn't say anything. So she comes back in minutes later, and I could see them because she left the door cracked because she left in such a hurry. And I could see her explaining to some of her coworkers and some other nurses, and they were looking at it going, as if to say, well, I don't know, this doesn't, and they were like, I'm telling you, look, and they were like, well, this is, and so they're on the phone and they're calling somebody. Well, I found out later they were calling the heart surgeon that had just left for the day, like minutes before. And he's like, I'm on the interstate now doing a U-turn. I'm on my way back, so I'm like, okay. But at that time, I didn't hear all of what he said. I just heard them saying he's on his way back. And so she comes in and she gives me some pills and she's like, take this real quick. And I'm like, well, what is, she was like, just take it. And I was like, okay. So I take it. And of course, later I found out it was nitroglycerin. And I was like, okay. So she was like, well, we need to get your stuff together. And I was like, get my stuff together. This is my stuff right here. She was like, well, we need to get your family too out of the waiting room. And I said, my family? I said, my family's not in the waiting room. And she was like, well, how did you get here? I said, I drove. And she was like, and before she knew it, she kind of let the cat out of the bag. She was like, you drove yourself here having a heart attack? And I said, having a what attack? I said, girl, no. And she was like,
Mhm.
uh, well, and then she kind of was trying to backtrack. And it's like, you can't really take that kind of stuff back.
No.
She was like, well, they just got to see what's going on with your heart. And she was like, um, they've got to do like an emergency surgery. And I was like, oh, hold on. I said, now that's where I'm going to draw the line. Nobody's cutting me or doing anything of that nature until somebody tells me something. I was like, because I don't even know what you're talking about. I said, I
Right.
don't have any heart problems. I was like, I don't have any health problems that I know of, period. So you're telling me something major, like somebody might have to crack my chest open or do somebody's going to tell me something. So at that point, she's like, well, we've got to do the exploratory surgery to see what's going on. And I was like, okay, see what's going on with what? I said, are you saying something is wrong with my heart? Is there something wrong with some other part of my body? Give me some kind of information that I can work with. And so she's like, well, there's something weird going on with your heart. And she's like, and we don't really know what all is going on, because it's not really making sense. And I guess what she was saying was based on what we're seeing, you should not be as lucid and as, you know, vibrant and not in pain as you currently are. And so I was like, okay. And she was like, well, we got to prep you for surgery. And I was like, oh no, go into somebody else. I got this. And she was like, well, and she told me what to do. And I got the stuff and went in the restroom and got myself prepared. And so I heard another nurse come in. And it was funny because she was like, well, where is she? She was like, she's in there. And she was like, well, we got to get her ready. They've got to see her now. She's prepping now. And she was like, she's prepping. She's doing it herself. And she was like, yeah, she can do that? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, okay. And then I heard one of them say, well, that's the difference between when a woman and a man comes in, like they are almost dead and we can't get them to do anything. And meanwhile, she's in there having herself for surgery. And then I heard them kind of chuckle, they were, not, and I came out and I laughed with them. And I was like, well, I'm fine. And so we get on there and they roll me on down the hall and they were like, well, everything's going to be all right. I said, I'm fine. She was like, you're not scared? I was like, mm-mm. And she was like, why? I said, well, if I didn't need anything that y'all got going on to keep my heart beating, and no need of me being worried about it now. If God had me safe all this time, why would I panic now? Like, I was
Right.
like, and so she was like, okay, kind of thing. And so we get down there, they do the surgery.
Mhm.
And when I get out, they're like, I don't even know how to tell you this. And I was like, well, just tell me. And they were like, you have blockages so severe, like he could see nothing,
Mm.
like how to put a stent in, nothing. And I asked him, I said, well, I don't, because my thing was, and y'all are gonna laugh, but I'm a girl. I was like, I don't want a big scar.
Right.
My chest. And I was like, you can't put a stent in or something. And I had, of course, in that little split second, gone on my phone and come up with all different kind of procedures and places that I could get it done to try to avoid that. And he looked at me and he was honest and he said, "Man, we're way past that." He
Mm.
said, "I'm just gonna tell you this: anybody that comes in your situation, they don't come in like you came in, driving themselves to the emergency room and talking." He said, basically, they're coming in DOA or about to be. And I'm like, okay, so that kind of shut me down enough for me to listen to him and realize, okay, I mean, this is serious, serious. And I kept asking him, I was like, how is that possible? Should not have been in pain. How was I functioning at that level? And you're telling this, how is it? He was like, I don't know. He was like, you just a walking miracle. He was like, or really lucky. He was like, I don't know. I said, I don't believe in luck. I was
Mm.
like, I believe in blessings and curses. So I'm really blessed. And I was like, but and he was like, well, okay, whatever you want to call it. He was
Mhm.
like, we've got to get this done. And so I asked him and I said, well, what kind of surgery are you talking about? And he's saying a bypass. And I was like, okay. And, he explained what a bypass was, which is basically where they crack your rib cage, they open up, your rib cage, and they basically stop your heart. It's like you are temporarily life support. And then they work on your heart. And with the bypass, they will take a artery from another part of your body. They took an artery from my leg. Most of the time it is the leg.
Mhm.
And for my situation, because my blockages were so severe, they had to do a quadruple bypass.
Mhm.
And he literally said, and that's only because we can't call it anything bigger than that, because that's the highest one you can get. He was like, if we could do something even bigger than that, we could. He said, but we gonna put, he said, we're past stents, we're past anything of that nature. And
Mhm.
basically they were like, we don't even know, not sure how you were really breathing, but they said because the way your heart muscle was pumping so slowly, how enough oxygen was getting to your brain and to the rest of your body for you to be functioning. I said, meanwhile, I'm leading praise and worship, writing books, teaching every day, a single
Mhm.
mom with 2 kids. Yeah, God is very much so capable. And they were like, well, it had to be something. And so, with all that being said, I did have a quadruple bypass. And the date he came in, it was over Easter weekend. And I remember because I was upset because I was supposed to lead worship
Mhm.
for that Easter Sunday. And I was like, God, and I was so excited about it. And I was like, man. And, the enemy, of course, during some of the time I was there, tried to discourage me and tell me, you
Mhm.
sitting up there laughing, but you might not even come out of there. You might die on the table. And I said, well, if I die, I know where I'm gonna open my eyes.
Okay.
And but the enemy still, he was trying to, instill fear in me. And I said, it's too late for me to be scared. I said, because I know that God is a keeper. He got me here unbeknownst to me, in anything that I was feeling or anything I thought that I was feeling. I was like, and I was obedient and I came and I said, and thank God that I was obedient and I came,
Mhm.
because boy, that really taught me a lesson on the value of being obedient when God is speaking something to you. Even when you don't understand,
Mhm.
it just pays to obey. Like we always grew up hearing that it pays to obey, and that's the truth.
Mhm.
And speaking with the doctor, like God gave me so much favor with him. He's like, I got to make sure you live. He was like, I got to keep you alive. I want you to write a book. He was like, listening at your life and all these things. He was like, I want to sit in here, but I got other patients. He was like, but I'm gonna make sure I keep you alive. And I said, well, thanks for that. And so he said, and I'm gonna see what I can do about that scar. And I said, thanks for that too.
Okay.
Which I'm not gonna show it, but anyway, it is so light
Mhm.
that when I went in, like not too long after I had the surgery, everybody was like, well, how long ago did you have it? I was like, couple of months ago. And they were like, your scar is what scars look like after they've healed for years. And I said, well, that's the God I serve. He does everything big.
That's right.
And he ended up doing the surgery on my birthday. He came in and he was like, well, I can change it because, I don't want to do. I said, no, best birthday present ever. I was like, I
Mhm.
get a new heart for my birthday. Hey, everything is about perspective, how you choose to look at it, what you choose, and I choose to rejoice. And
Okay.
when I went in for the surgery that morning, it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. And they were all looking so sad and solemn and serious. And and they put the surgical cap on me and were prepping me. And I said, is this the best birthday hat y'all could come up with? And they all kind of chuckled like, and they looked like, are we allowed to laugh? This look. And they were like, and then one of them was looking at the girl like, like this look on her face, like, does she understand like how serious this is? And I guess she's thinking like there's a high likelihood that this could go left. And I was thinking, not, no, it's not.
Mhm.
Maybe for somebody else, but I ain't claiming that.
Right.
And so anyway, I heard her say, we got to make sure this lady comes out of here. Same thing he said, and I laughed and I said, you know, God favor is fair, and I'm grateful for it because they were very, very helpful, very careful. You know, my scar is like little to nothing. You
Mhm.
know, it just looks like a small scar. It doesn't even look as bad as some people's scars that they have after a cesarean. So I
Yeah.
am blessed.
So
And
what was
then
the
I was in there
Mhm.
and it was Easter Sunday, and God literally said and spoke to me and said, as I was resurrected, so will you be. And I said, God, that's my word. I'm standing on it. And I
Mhm.
said, you were resurrected in 3 days. And I said, on the third day you got up, and on the third day I'm getting up. Well, guess how long I was in there? 3 days.
Yay.
On the third day I was up and walking. They were looking for me in the room.
Mhm.
And I had gone walking around the hospital, and they were like, well, we thought something had happened. I said, oh no, nothing happened. I just was exercising and I got turned around and they were looking. The next day, the doctor said, send her home. You
Mhm.
know, well, we won't have to look for her. He said, send her on home. She's fine. And honestly, I was fine when they came to check everything. Like I said, within days, my scars started to heal. I
Mhm.
was able to get up, move. I had minimal to no pain. I was only on the strongest pain meds they gave me. Maybe it wasn't even a week.
Mhm.
All the pain meds they given me, they were like, "You didn't fill in the prescriptions." I said, "I didn't need them." They said, "You've been taking Tylenol." I said, "Yeah." You know, and people's like, they cracked your chest open. I was like, I can't explain it either. I just know God is great and
Mhm.
He's merciful indeed. And the next month, I was back at work on light duty.
Okay. So what was the
So
recovery like for you? I know you were saying you were able to get up and walk, after the third day, but did they have you to do, any type of physical therapy or anything like that? Because, with your chest, being cracked open like that, raising your arms, some people complain about not being able to do that, being able to twist, to bend over, things of that nature. So what was that like for you?
I did go to cardiac rehab,
Mhm.
which is excellent. And I would advise anybody who ever has to have anything with their heart, if they offer it, it's excellent
Mhm.
because, they hook you up and you don't have that fear of, well, what if I exert myself and get my heart pumping too much? You're already hooked up. So they're monitoring your heart rate and everything. And you can just kind of go and exercise at your pace. And if they feel like you're overdoing it, they'll kind of tell you, okay, calm down a little bit, but I did go to cardiac rehab, excuse me, and that was great for me. And I actually did have a home nurse that was coming and checking my wounds and stuff like that. And that was a service that they provided through Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I think that lasted maybe the first month. After that, I think you have to pay for it out of pocket, but it is a free service that comes with certain policies.
Okay.
So that was a blessing. And the cardio rehab is actually free. You have to request it,
Mhm.
and they have to fill out paperwork, and then you will ask your doctor, and he can fill out a form where they will allow you to go for free. So, and a lot of people don't know that. So, a lot of people don't even know that they have cardiac rehab. I was blessed that somebody, I think it was a nurse, yeah, it was a nurse that came in and suggested it to me and say, told me I needed to go. And I was like, well, what is that? And she brought me a pamphlet and said, look it up, find out, because everybody who goes, they do better. It helps them recover faster and stuff like that. So it did help build my strength up. It was a little embarrassing because it was older people there when I went, because so they were looking at me like,
What you
she
doing?
coming in here making them work us too hard. She's on those machines. They want us to do more. You got to go home. And I thought that was hilarious because but I made a lot of sweet friends. I met a lot of elderly friends that were there. And it was a good experience.
Okay. And then when it comes to like medication, are you still taking anything now or you completely done? No blood pressure medicine, no nothing.
No, I do still take medication. They put me on blood pressure medicine.
Mhm.
They also put me on a statin, which basically helps to control like any irregular heartbeats or anything like that. And then I, a medicine that helps with cholesterol.
Okay.
Now
And
I started taking on my own fish oil tablets,
mhm,
um, because I had read about a lot of the benefits they have for like heart patients and people that are dealing with, high cholesterol and helping with your joints and stuff. And one of the side effects of statins, a lot of times they will make you have like joint pain. So
mhm,
the fish oil tablets kind of helped with my skin and they helped with some other stuff. And they kind of prevented the statins from giving me a whole lot of, soreness and joint pain. So I don't have a lot of aches and pains. About the only thing that I would say that's remaining that's uncomfortable for me would be like every now and then I might have like I don't want to say a tightness in the chest, but like almost like a flutter.
mhm,
And it's scary because once you've had a heart attack, every flutter, you're like, okay, I need to be paying attention. Because when you think about how quickly that happened
mhm,
and that there really wasn't any symptoms, and then the doctor literally told me, he literally said to me, he said, I'm going to just say this. He said, what probably would have happened if you wouldn't have listened and you would have went back to sleep, he
mhm.
said you may not have your kids may have found you dead in the bed the next morning. He
Yep.
said you may not have woken up, excuse me. He was like, because sometimes that happens. He said that's why we call it the silent killer. And
Mhm,
he was like, it's just one of those things. He said, so it's important for people to get checked.
mhm,
And when they're having pains or they're feeling anything or their cholesterol is high,
mhm.
to really be on top of that because you don't know what could be developing. Because if nobody checks, you
Mhm.
don't know. And
That's
the
right.
thing was, I did go get physicals. People are like, well, why weren't you getting your? I was like, honey, I do all my annuals.
Okay.
I was like, however, because my blood pressure was not high,
Mhm,
because at the time I was like kind of a borderline diabetic. I really wasn't diagnosed. My sugar was just high sometimes, and they would just say, well, just watch it. So there was really no reason for them to check,
mm,
my cholesterol unless I just had a thorough doctor, which that's important too. You need to make sure you have one
mhm.
that's checking the stuff that other doctors don't check. If they're just giving you a once over and saying, oh, you look fine, you might need to get another doctor. Which
Good
I'm
advice.
about to uh, because I need somebody that's a little extra careful,
Mm,
that's going to notice the things that other people don't notice.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
did you change your eating habits or anything like that? Like now that you've had surgery, do you stay away from steak, and things like that? Because beef is high in cholesterol. So
Right. Well, to be completely honest with you, I kind of took red meat completely out of my diet. I won't say that every now and then I
mhm.
might not have some red meat. Like I'll eat spaghetti every now and then, but like eating steak, no, I don't eat steak. I never really was a big steak fan anyway, but
Mm,
hamburgers, so every now and then I might have a hamburger. It might be like once a month or something like that.
mhm,
But basically my diet consists of like chicken, turkey, and I try not to do fried. I try to do baked,
mhm,
or I get casseroles and stuff like that. But because I'm a borderline diabetic, I still have to watch my sugar intake too, because I don't want that to become an issue. So uh I try to do some beans, because beans are a good source of protein to kind of take the place of the meat that I'm not eating.
mhm.
Doing a lot of like nuts and almonds are good. Pistachios are pretty good. And so some nuts though I found are high in cholesterol. I think I have researched everything known to man as far as like what you can eat. And fatty fish, believe it or not, are pretty good for your cholesterol in
Mm,
moderation. Shrimp is ridiculously high in cholesterol, so I had to do away with mostly all shellfish.
mhm,
Um, so I do like tuna. I do an occasional fatty fish, salmon.
mhm,
Um, Turkey, chicken. Processed foods are pretty bad.
mhm.
And even though they are not high in cholesterol, they're very high in sodium. And I did not know that. Like most like meat that you buy, deli sliced meat in the packages that you buy at the stores,
Yep.
check the back and you would be blown away about how much salt. Like it's literally in like a couple of slices of ham or turkey. And
Mhm.
there's really no such thing as a clean deli meat as far as that's concerned.
Right.
It just has to be something you eat in moderation.
Mhm.
So I hate to bust some people's bubble, but I've done the research.
Yeah.
Subway is not that great an alternative. I know we love it, but the processed meats are really bad for our health. So what I do is the only thing Subway does have that is, I would say, a lesser of the evils is they have like a rotisserie chicken sandwich where they actually pull the chicken breast off and they don't process it to the same way they do like deli meat. So that, or if you can get like the Subway where you're getting like the grilled chicken, but
Mhm.
like if you're getting Subway where it's like deli meats, pounds of deli meat sliced on there, I'm
Sounds
talking about thousands. Sodium, it's like off the thousands of milligrams. I'm like, in one sandwich? They're like, yeah. So I had to learn that the hard way because I thought that was a solution. I thought, okay, I'll just be like Jared and I'll just live off the Subway. I thought I thought that was gonna work. It did not work. They were
Baby,
like,
nope.
"No, you can't eat that." So
Mm-mm.
I had to learn. So that's something that I eat every now and then. And
Mhm.
occasionally I still have pizza, but I do like a cheese pizza.
Mhm.
And if I have to get meat, I'll do like baked chicken. Little they have like where you can get the little baked chicken bites or whatever, and a bunch of veggies to try to balance it out. But I'll tell anybody that knows me knows I love to eat. So
Mhm.
I'm just not gonna eat a bunch of stuff that tastes like paper bag, and that's just me. So there has to be some kind of joy still left in eating. So
Mhm.
I had to figure that out. I found out that whole wheat alternatives help.
Mhm.
Um, I always thought like whole wheat bread was so much better than honey wheat because my mom would always preach that, oh, you don't need that honey wheat,
Mhm.
that's true. And then when I read like 1,000 articles and found out that the honey wheat bread that um that we had, it's actually the whole wheat bread and the honey wheat bread are about neck and neck. So it's kind of one of those situations where I realized really quickly that the breads that I was eating were about the same
Mhm.
as the as what she was eating. So, and then I also found out they have whole wheat pasta.
Mhm.
So when I make spaghetti, I do like a whole wheat pasta.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I found a lot of healthy alternatives.
Okay, so what about exercise?
Exercise is right now, it's like I don't get to exercise as much as I should. So maybe like a couple of times a week, all I can squeeze in. When the summer comes, I'm planning on rectifying that because my daughters and I are going to be doing tennis. So that gives me some good practice. We'll see
Mhm.
how many times mommy falls before she learns how to actually
She's
play.
not
But
gonna
it's
fall.
gonna be, yes, you're right. I am claiming
You're
in the
gonna be
name of Jesus,
fine.
I am not gonna fall. But it's not as easy as it looks. Like, it looks like you just hop from side to side till your hip starts hurting and you're thinking, I am not as young as I used to be.
Look, that's why I
But
got you
yeah,
playing tennis.
oh, okay. Do you play tennis?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you might have to give me some pointers.
Absolutely. So I am curious because we haven't said anything about, your family history at all. Did you have anyone in your family that suffered, from any heart related issues?
Well, see, that's the thing. My dad's mom
Hmm.
and dad were dead
Hmm.
young, but from what I have learned, they weren't heart related issues. So, and then he died when I was younger. So
Hmm.
my mom kind of lost the family history with that side of the family.
Hmm.
And so I do have a god brother who is like a biological cousin of mine, but he's also my god brother,
Hmm.
and he has had a bypass.
Oh,
So looking at that, and then I started talking to him, and he was like, yeah, it's heart problems in our family. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Now's a fine time to tell me that. And so I found out that there are heart related issues in the family, and I just had to um accept it and start working on things that I can do to make sure that my daughters are safe and that I'm getting them checked and that they're going to be getting their cholesterol checked. So yeah,
That's good.
yeah, I did find out there was a slight family history, but nothing that I knew in time that I would know to be checking or anything like that. But I was told that if you have a family history of it, you definitely need to request that your doctor checks your cholesterol because sometimes it can be high and you just not know
Right.
it. And yeah.
So the thing that I'm the most curious about, you spoke so clearly and so eloquently about how God spoke so clearly to you to keep you from going to sleep, to keep you moving, to get you to take that baby aspirin or whatever it was. It might have been what 2 years old or however old it was, and then for you to trust him to get in your car, knowing your mom was on her way, to go to the hospital, to speak clearly and coolly. How did you get to that point? To where you just say, you know what, I don't care what everyone else says, this is what it looks like. I'm gonna trust God.
Well, one thing that I learned, flowing in the prophetic, I am used to hearing the voice of God, but whether you flow in the prophetic or not,
Mhm.
you kind of have to practice his presence. One thing I learned is that if you get to the point where you spend time in worship, praying, and listening to the voice of God, you start learning what the presence of God feels like.
Mhm.
And I think we talked earlier, and I said one of the things that I hate is that there's so many churches now that are not helping young people to practice His presence. You know, they're teaching them about a lot of works and a lot of acts of service, and that's all great. But
Right.
if you don't spend time, intimate time in the presence of God, praying,
Mhm.
and it doesn't always have to be fasting because I know when I say the F word, whether it's whatever, you see that and boy, people start saying fasting, they're like, oh
Yep.
Lord, because you don't mess with our food. And most people are like, well, can't Lord speak to me some other kind of way besides me fasting? Because I like to eat. And I was like, I
Mhm.
get it, honey.
Mhm.
Believe me, that's not always something I'm excited about. I said, but some things are worth giving up food over.
That's right.
And I was like, and you have to go through the phases to train your spirit to be able to hear the voice of God. I was like, and if your flesh is out of control and your
Mhm.
flesh is screaming so loud you can't hear the voice of God, that's a problem. Because
Mhm.
if I let my flesh scream so loud that night when I was so sleepy, it
Mhm.
was screaming, it was saying, I want to go to sleep. I am not caring right now. It
Mhm.
would have killed me,
Yeah.
literally, not figuratively,
Okay.
literally. And a doctor has told me very likely it would have killed you. You probably would not have gotten up the next morning. So it is important not to allow our flesh to dictate to us everything we do in life. If
Mhm.
you get that check in your spirit that something is wrong, stop what you were doing. Find your, I don't care if you're at work, if you feel like something is wrong, I feel like something I just discern in my spirit, something is not right, or you're in somebody's presence and you get that feeling,
Mhm.
find a bathroom stall. Go in there and pray and say, God, show me what is wrong.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's if you will just stop and
Mhm.
ask God what's wrong, He will show you. And there are so many different ways He can show you. It doesn't always have to be like an audible voice in your spirit, because some people are like, I don't really have that kind of relationship yet, and I don't know how to hear like that. But sometimes he will show you by somebody saying something or doing something, or like me when I was unsure, by that lady telling me exactly what the spirit was putting in my spirit, that you need
Mhm.
to go to the ER, because that was not on my mind. I did not want to sit up in the ER at 1 o'clock in the morning when I am utterly exhausted. That was the last place I wanted to be. Then, of course, my mind was like, I'll be in there and might catch COVID or something. Then,
Oh
if there's
Lord.
nothing wrong with me, I'm going to show enough be sick. So my mind had already rationalized out of that. And I heard it in my spirit. I
Mhm.
didn't say it out loud. I heard it. I was like, eh, you know. And then when she
Mhm.
said it, I was like, oh, I guess I'm good. So, it happens, but we have to practice his presence. And I know some people think it's not a big deal, but I think my case is one of the clear examples of how practicing his presence and knowing the voice of God can save your life, not just your relationships, not just your spiritual life, your literal physical life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything that, say there's a person that's sitting out there saying, oh, I'm too young to have anything, going on like that? Because like you said, when you went to your cardiac rehab, you're sitting there and there's a whole lot of older people there. You the youngest person, in there. How can you get people to change their mindset to know that a heart attack doesn't have an age?
Well, for one thing, it can come on so quickly. And I tell people, if you've been having flutters
Mm-hmm.
or your cholesterol is like always notoriously high,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have your heart checked. And there are things that they can do. They have this thing, it's called Lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes, and my mom actually went, and it comes to a lot of the recreational centers and a lot of the centers, and you probably will have to look it up online, but they come to different areas
Mm-hmm.
and they have this instrument that they use. They put you in kind of like this, I guess it would be kind of like getting a body scan, but some kind of way they can check your arteries to see what kind of buildup you have. And if you have any family history of heart disease, you
Mm-hmm.
need to be checked. If you have cholesterol, you need to be checked, because cholesterol can get out of control quick and can therefore turn into heart disease quick.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out was, because I asked him, I said, well, I'm so young. And I was like, and I don't have any health problems. I was like, how is that? He said, you have what we call coronary artery disease. He said, and some people have, it's a genetic thing. And he was like, some people have it and they don't know that they have it. So they don't know to be checked.
Right.
And if they're like you and they've lost their family history, or maybe somebody in the family has died and nobody ever did an autopsy and they don't know that person had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know. I mean, it's just kind of like a complete unknown. And he was like, but sometimes you have little indicators. And some of the indicators that I would say that I've learned from things that I've researched after it happened to me, a heaviness in the chest,
Mm-hmm.
numb feelings in your arm, like if all of a sudden you have an excruciating pain in your arm, and it's numb and it's radiating like from your arm to your chest.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think some of the other things. Swelling. If your feet are oddly just out of the blue starting to swell a lot all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
you hadn't been doing any new exercises, or you hadn't been standing on your feet a lot, but all of a sudden you wake up in the morning and your feet are swelling,
Mm-hmm.
or that can be a sign, because that's a sign that your circulation is not doing what it needs to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the other things?
Isn't it
Let's
with
see.
women, they mention that sometimes we'll feel like we're having stomach pains and it's actually a heart attack? Because men are the ones that they say mostly feel it in their arm, right? And then women, they say it radiates from our stomach and we think
It
it's
it
something else.
can.
Mm-hmm.
It can. And that's why a lot of times people confuse it with gas or bloatedness, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can. But the stomach pains that you have from a heart attack, they're not, unless you have stomach problems, they're not like your normal, normal regular stomach pains. They are more severe.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're kind of sharp shooting stomach pains, like where you would be like, ooh, you know, kind of feel like somebody stabbed you with something for a quick
Mm-hmm.
second, and you'll be like, and the thing that throws a lot of people off is because sometimes you might pass gas with it, sometimes, so you'll be
Relieves
thinking,
it.
oh, it's just gas then,
Mm-hmm.
but if it happens too much and it's coupled with other symptoms, you need to
Mm-hmm.
be checked.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's nausea too, and
Yes.
sweating as well, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Sweating is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you all of a sudden just start having an uncomfortableness in your chest,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start profusely sweating,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes your body starts to go into panic mode. And it almost, sometimes they can feel like an anxiety attack, because some people are like, I thought it was anxiety. And they're not having an anxiety attack. They're having what I call little baby cardiac moments.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel like you're having an anxiety attack, and the thing is though, with an anxiety attack, the difference is with an anxiety attack, when you have those, most of the time, if you try deep breathing and
Mhm.
you calm yourself, they'll go away. But if you think you're having an anxiety attack and you try deep breathing and
Mhm.
your chest is still hurting or you still feel a tug, might not be anxiety and it's worth checking out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us on this episode of Embracing the Fight?
No, but I just want everybody to listen to your body.
Mhm.
Ladies, I'm just going to say this. We are notorious for enduring pain
Yep.
and pushing through it. I call it mommy syndrome because sometimes we have so much to do
Mhm.
and we're so busy
Mhm.
taking care of everybody else. But you know what I learned? If you don't take some of the medicine that you're giving everybody else, your patients will be healed while you are dying and
Yep.
not knowing it.
Mhm.
And so it is very important that you listen to your body. It doesn't have to be your heart. There are little nagging pains that sometimes we have, and I'll go to the doctor, but it's kind of like one of those eventual.
Yeah.
Well, don't let it be eventually until it's too late. Thank God the Spirit of God is wise and knows me, because to be honest with you, had the Holy Spirit have not spoken to me, I probably would have been one of those ones where it was too late. Because there were, little discomfort that I had felt. And if I'm honest with myself, for about probably like 2 weeks, I
Mhm.
had little tugging, but it wasn't anything severe enough because my pain threshold was so high because I'm so used to pushing through stuff that I just really didn't even pay it any attention.
Mhm.
But when I stopped, I realized, how silly am I that I could have sat up there and kept pushing myself and pushing myself. And some of us, we really don't have anything major going on. If we will go now while it's early,
Mhm.
they'll catch some of that stuff and it
Oh yeah.
won't manifest into something 5 times bigger. Like even things like breast cancer. We're
Mhm.
having pains in our breasts and we're just, oh, it's gas. Everything's not gas, I'm gonna tell you.
Mhm.
That was always the answer. My mom, oh, it's probably gas. Oh, it's probably gas. I was like, oh, you having a pain? Oh, it's probably gas pocket down there. And I was like, okay, well, I guess gas can get anywhere. But then I realized that that wasn't the case. And
Mhm.
so I think sometimes we ignore certain stuff that we know we should. And sometimes it's fear because
Right.
we don't want to know.
Mhm.
But it's better to know so that you can do everything on the front end so that your symptoms
Mhm.
are not something you're ignoring. And then whatever is going on can be very easily treated. But
Mhm.
when you let stuff go to the point where by the time you go in, you're riddled with cancer,
Mhm.
or you got a little knot on your thyroid and now it's like a big old garter that you can barely even swallow, you know, yeah. And I know, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got to go and deal with stuff. We can't keep sweeping things under the rug, and that includes men as well, because it's not just ladies that do it. Sometimes men, it's the whole macho thing. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't bother me. Don't let it not bother you till it kills you.
Right.
I mean, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. That is great advice. And thank you so much for taking time out to sit with me and share your testimony. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate you having me. I hope it helps
Okay.
somebody and somebody is encouraged in the faith to believe God, deepen your relationship with Christ so that you know his voice when you hear it.
Mhm.
And I hope some of you take some preventative measures. So much stuff that we put ourselves through can be avoided, and even the things we put our kids through just because we're hard headed,
Yeah.
you know.
And that is definitely a word that closes the show. Absolutely. So thank you all for taking a moment out to watch this episode 68, My Heartbeat with Danette Barker. I want you all to have an absolutely amazing day.